Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we're joined by Hunter Cobbs, Senior Sales Engineer at CyberMDX, and Rich DeFabritas, Senior Director, Product Marketing for CyberMDX. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank today's sponsor, CyberMDX, a Forescout company. They believe medical device security is essential to quality care delivery. Their mission is to enable healthcare delivery organizations worldwide to provide quality care and by securing and protecting the systems and devices that you rely on every day to treat illness and save lives. For more information, we want to encourage you to visit today's sponsor's website. You can do so by going to CyberMDX.com. Also, TechNation community, we want to make sure that you're saving the date for the next MD Expo. Its dates are going to be October 11 through 13. The MD Expo SoCal will be nestled in the Temecula Valley's picturesque Southern California wine country at the Pechanga Casino and Resort. Our call for presenters is open online through May 16th. MD Expo seeks presenters who can offer firsthand experience implementing new technologies, case studies of process improvement in healthcare technology management, best practices using techniques to maximize efficiency and reduce costs, or practical ways to facilitate interdepartmental communication and support within the facility. If you have a great idea for one of our educational sessions, then please go online to mdexposhow.com to submit your class idea today. Again, that deadline is going to be May 16th. Today's webinar is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. You can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. This survey will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's presentation. You must complete the survey to receive the certificate, and you will be able to download your certificate directly from your computer once the survey is completed. If you have any questions or issues, you're always welcome to email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. All right, guys, like I mentioned earlier, Hunter and Rich are our presenters today. We've got a real treat for you. We're going to explore the cross-sections of the valued biomedical role in the cyber-connected world. Rich, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Great, Jamie, thank you. And thanks, folks, for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. A little bit about CyberMDX before I hand it off to Hunter. And you heard Jamie say CyberMDX is a Forescout company. For those of you that are aware, we were acquired, or not aware, we were acquired about 2-3 months ago by Forescout. Forescout doesn't have necessarily a big presence or maybe top of mind for the biomedical community, but very prominent in the healthcare and hospitals around the world. Together, Forescout and CyberMDX, we offer a powerful platform that delivers device visibility, device classification, threat detection, incident response, etc., to better serve healthcare organizations. You heard Jamie say, she stole a little of my thunder, but not too much because I like to repeat the mission statement. We are a mission-based organization. And to repeat that, and you see it here, our mission is to enable healthcare delivery organizations like yours to provide quality care by securing and protecting the systems and devices that you rely on every day to treat illnesses and save lives, right? So at the end of the day here, what we're talking about is patient care and patient safety. That's important to you. It's important to us. It's the reason we exist. We do that through a very unique approach, something we call device-centric risk management, or DCRM. And this is a security framework or security model where we wrap layers of security essentially around each of your medical devices, around your network, and around the perimeter of your network to really lock those down in the event that there's something like a breach or an incident that happens. I work for CyberMDX. If anyone here has been on one of my webinars before, you know I'm nothing if not repetitive. I like to say I'm biased. I work for the company, so I'm going to tell you how great we are. So don't take my word for it, but we've been cited by major analyst firms like Forrester, Frost & Sullivan as being a leader in the connected medical device security space. And we're really proud to be the recipient of multiple awards. As you can see here in the middle, most recently, we swept, I think, 6 awards in the Cybersecurity Excellence Awards, the gold medal. Okay, so it's an award-winning solution, and analysts have cited us as a major player in this market. Many of your peers who are using the solution already have rated us on Gartner Peer Insights. We have the most 5-star ratings of any vendor in this space. And you can see a quote here from a security person, a CISO, saying it's a game-changing solution. And we have a number of clients around the world, including some of the biggest hospital networks, including Northwestern Medicine, Michigan Medicine, Englewood Health, amongst others. Now, I said we're a mission-based organization. So one of the things that we also do is work very closely with organizations like CISA, the FDA, MITRE, as well as major medical device manufacturers, with the goal of identifying vulnerabilities so that they can be remediated, with the ultimate goal of, again, not being exploited when they're out there in the wild or out there being operated and used. And we do that basically free of charge through something we call our CyberMDX research labs. And Forescout has something called Vidari Labs. So together, what we do is identify these vulnerabilities. We work with CISA to publish them and work with the manufacturers to get those updated or remediated so they're not exploited, as I mentioned down the road. So with that, because I'm a talker and I could probably talk all day just about CyberMDX, I'm going to hand it off to Hunter. He's going to take you through the presentation. Hunter?
All right, thank you, Rich. And for reference, obviously, we've gotten through the initial pitch, but let's talk about what's actually going on. And since it's May the 4th, I've got the Millennium Falcon and I've got X-Wing on the Death Star, so yay. But getting down to the brass tacks, everything is changing in healthcare. It's almost like when you moved from the analog to the digital world. Now you're going from the digital to the cybersecurity world. So your biomed people are starting to get folded into the IT department or your CISO, what have you. So that's kind of where it's going. So you need to combine these two disparate teams. You've got the biomed people who are mostly concerned, and everyone can probably, I can kind of hear this nodding currently, but the biomed people are worried about making sure that the devices that are giving patient care are actually working. That's what they care about. Unfortunately, the IT department has the opposite problem. They need to make sure that the biomed devices don't talk outside of it. So how do you bring those two things together? And we'll get to that in a minute. But what's kind of going on here is we're looking at why is this being driven together? We've had breaches. You have cybersecurity insurance. You have medical devices that are like get pushed onto an ambulance and then disappear from the hospital. Things, all of this. So one of the first things that you really need to do is get a clear inventory of your assets. You may have a CMMS, you may have other things to help track this, but that is first item that you need to do. On top of that, now you need to also secure those devices. How do you do that? Well, that's where, like we said, that's where things are coming together. So what does that mean? Honestly, the hospitals themselves, they're always understaffed, especially on the IT department and your biomed side. So it's already fragile as is. So you don't have time to actually go in and do all the research. So you need something that keeps track of possible vulnerabilities, helps you view your network segmentation so you can take your mission critical devices like your MRIs, your medical suites, all of those type of things. You want to make sure that those are encapsulated. They call it segmentation is the buzzword currently, but you need to make sure all of that's happening, and that it does not impact patient care. That being said, in the first half of 2021, there were documented 122 attacks against hospitals. Now, what's really telling is that if you go in and look at the bottom right of our slide here, 25, nearly a quarter of those 122 odd attacks led to appointment cancellations. That's bad enough. The 22% is what's really bad. It led to patients being redirected because the hospital could not, the hospital and or the provider could not help those people, so they had to go on diversion. And as my wife's a nurse, so anytime we say that something goes on diversion, she screams, pulls her hair out, and things go crazy. So some real world views of this. All right, so we actually had a documented case in 2021 of a hospital going offline, basically due to cyber attacks in Ireland. And they had to actually go back to paper charting, and as you all know, that would be a huge change to anything that's going on. Now, then we go back to the US side. We've got some of the imaging partners that have multiple things that kind of offload your scanning, your MRI, your CT, all of that type stuff. That major partner was hacked, and well, it was a security incident, as they say, but that led to pretty much everything that they touched. They had clinics around the US, and every appointment was canceled for multiple weeks. So that's the scary part. So now what does all this mean? It's like, yes, we know it's bad, we know all this. So what do we do from here? So patient safety, first and foremost, top of mind. Everything you need to worry about is there. However, you also, now that these are attached to technical and internet connected devices, you need to worry about the digital threats and also anything like worms or viruses and stuff like that. However, as you know, with biomed devices, you can't just upgrade the OS. You can't just patch it. It's you either go afoul of your FDA or your FDA classification, or you void your warranty. So what do you do about that? That's when you start looking at your asset inventory. So it's like, what do we have? It's like, we have glucometers, we've got the docking stations, we've got ironically, even the pneumatic tubes are hackable. So you need to look at all of that type stuff. So now, what do? It's like, so once again, first and foremost, you got to get your asset inventory. Next, you have to look at your risks. Third, you need to make sure you're in as much compliance and governance as you can, because like I said, you're going to be out of compliance because you're not going to be able to update a Windows 7 or a Windows XP embedded device, because it's going to break the machine and or take it out of FDA certification. So that's where we get into the wrapping of protections. And then it's the detection and response. That's where you're going to spend, if you do it right, that's going to be where you spend most of your time, because all of the other stuff, if you've taken care of it, perfect. But once again, it's a team effort. So you've got to understand what your biomed people are concerned about. You have to understand what your IoT and your security people are looking at, and they need to communicate. So you need to have one central knowledge about what's going on, so that you can share the load. Basically, it's like your, how to put it, it's like your consults with doctors. It's like, okay, this is what I think. Hey, come here. This is your specialty. Let me talk to you. Let's go over it. And you walk through it, and they're like, okay, well, here's the best path forward. That's kind of what we're presenting here. All right. That did not move on me. Come on. I'll just do it the manual way. Come on. Okay. So part of the things that you need to do is, like, you get a new device, or actually most hospitals get several dozen new devices every month. And you need to have a playbook on, okay, brand new device, let me change the credentials so it's not using the default ones. Let me make sure it's on the right network. Let me make sure that it's got all of its recalls. So if you haven't noticed, I've now touched every portion of your environment. You've got security, you've got IT, you've got biomed. All three of those had to be engaged. So there you go. That's a good start of it. So then we move on. Now we need to know which OSs are unsupported. That is bread and butter for your IT department. However, you need to know which devices you're talking about, because they may be a critical patient care device, and you don't want, your biomed will jump up and say, no, do not turn that off at all. Just no. You don't want to be turning off someone's ventilator because they've got an outdated OS if it's still working. However, you need to work together as a team to build that protection around it. So that's you'll understand. I know I'm getting a little repetitive here, but it's literally, you don't want to have your biomed people or clinical engineers have to learn IT. It's just not their wheelhouse. You also don't want to have your IT department, aka, like, both of these departments that I'm saying is like 1, 2, if you're lucky, 5 people each. You don't want them having to learn biomed, but you want to bring them together to make it a much more secure hospital. Because one of the biggest things that happens is your IT or your biomed just says, you know what, give me a segment, let me put all my stuff on it, you don't have to worry about it, leave me alone. That is ripe for a ransomware attack or a penetration and spread wide, and lock all those devices down, and then now you can't do your core job, which is caring for patients. So you need to keep track of the devices, you need to keep track of the recalls, you need to keep track of the security. You see how this is going. It's like, I don't have time for all this. So continuing on, once again, it's like, here's your unsupported OSs. Yeah, they're like way out of date. But if you put up protections with your IT department saying, okay, I'm going to put all these Windows 7 devices in their own little world, and they don't talk to anything else except for a PAC server or something like that. But they're just sitting there in their own little world, and I can manage the risk at that. You're never going to eliminate it. There's absolutely no possibility of completely eliminating the risk, but you can manage it. And if you couple your IT and your med team together, that's how you manage that risk. Once again, continue on, the FDA recalls. You need to know where your recalls are, what they are, the risk, class 1, class 2, class 3. Are they specific to, a patient care device, or is this a Zebra printer? You don't care about the Zebra printer, but, if you're doing an infusion pump, you care about that. So having all of that information available helps you prioritize your day, because everyone knows you only have such amount of time. And as I like to say, it's like, if everyone had infinite resources and infinite people, this would be a no-brainer. But no one no one has infinite resources, and no one has infinite money. So you have to prioritize, hence the risk management and bringing everything together. Additionally, you want to know about your utilization and your single source of truth. So in this case, you can see what your IT devices are, how they're being used, what's being scanned. Then you also look at your case management. It's like, okay, what are my risks for the IT side? And then, if you're looking at this and you have a site that's got a CT machine that's basically about completely utilized, you might want to start putting that in your budget. But how are you going to know unless you bring the IT and the biomed together? So now, once again, I know I keep hammering on this, but it's all about teamwork. There is no such thing in hospitals now as the the good doctor. It's like, no, you have to have IT, you have to have biomed, you have to have everything working together with a single source of truth, and making sure that everything is documented, verified, and acted on. So I know I kept hammering the same thing over and over again. Let's see here. Rich, do you have any additional points you want to hit before we move to the Q&A?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, the underlying message here for folks on the call would be that, and I know through things like HIPAA and some, just general hospital initiatives, that security, and I tend to say this on a lot of the calls, security is no longer the domain of, say, network or, IT security type personnel, right? It's the job of everybody, particularly in a hospital. If we consider that the hospital environment, it's a 24/7 by 365 environment, any loss or any downtime, right? Whether that is accidental or it's caused by an external attack, that could result in a negative patient outcome. Hunter talked at length about what had happened in Ireland, right? And what happened in Ireland actually lasted for weeks, right? They had a hard time getting everything, or ensuring that the network was cleansed and getting everything back online. So you as biomedical and clinical engineers need to consider and take this into account, right? So your job or your focus is the life cycle of these devices. That's a critical piece of it, right? And so a few other points, Hunter, just before we move on.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
The average time of an outage of that type sort that happened in Ireland is 2 months. The worst case we've seen is 6 months. So
Yeah.
6 months on diversion in a hospital.
Yeah. And we have
just think about that difficulty.
Yeah. And we have some stats. I did a webinar with Technation a couple months ago called Perspectives in Healthcare Security. You can go back and look at it in the archive. What we did was we contracted firm called Ipsos to do survey of biomedical and security folks at small to mid-sized to large hospitals to get their perspectives and their attitudes on healthcare security, right? And one of the things we uncovered was the cost of an outage. Again, forget the patient piece of it. That's obviously critical. Just looking at it from a monetary perspective, these average breach times, as you said, or average downtime, Hunter, as you said, can be weeks or months. And the numbers we came up with from the feedback was something like, I don't have the report in front of me, but like $15,000 a day, right? And so you can do the math on that. It's millions of dollars when it's all said and done, and that's not counting the reputational risk. And if you don't have cyber insurance, the potential legal action that's gonna follow up, because patients are obviously going to litigate if we're seeing this over and over again, right? So it becomes more one where you have to align under the initiatives of the organization. And again, the hospitals that are doing this right, everybody is singing from the same choir, right? And we see this even at the federal level. They're starting to take action to make sure that everybody has some basic training, some basic understanding, some responsibility. But again, we have to consider that the hospital environment, the healthcare perspective, is a lot greater than, say, financial services or something like that, because ultimately the impact to patient safety, the impact to patient outcome is critical here. So that's the one thing I would say, and that's really that middle bucket, right? Making sure that everybody's aligned. If you as a biomedical or clinical engineer aren't security savvy, it's time to take the steps to do that. If you're leading the organization and you're not there, it's probably a good idea to align with security teams. And then Hunter, I also heard you say, in some cases, and we've seen this, I know of and have spoken directly to CISOs that have the biomedical and clinical engineering teams reporting under that person. So you're starting to see, and I think the goal with HTM was ultimately to be more encompassing, starting to see that happen, but make sure you do that. And the last thing, this last bubble here, take action, right? We always say that, talking the talk is one thing. It's ultimately walking the walk. And let me give you a statistic from the Ipsos report. Again, if you weren't on the webinar I did a couple months ago, we found that the majority of hospitals, we'll say in the 80+% range, identified cybersecurity as a major issue, one that required attention. But when we asked those same people what was the level of investment that they made, how much of your budget was devoted to that, we found that less than 10% actually devoted significant budget to cybersecurity initiatives. Okay, so people are saying it, they're not necessarily doing it. And I want to say that's not an indictment of the hospitals. It's not to say that they don't care. There may be other things that prioritize that budget away. That's fair, but we still have to understand that anything you can do, right? Any steps you can take, to shoring up the security or improving your security posture, that's what you want to do. And I'm sort of leading Hunter a little bit to the next slide. I don't know if you want to jump ahead to it. If you want me to cover it, I can.
I got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and while we're doing that, by the way, what Rich was saying is like it goes back to the old, see something, say something, but it really matters with hospitals because your primary goal is patient care, and it's just getting harder and harder to secure the devices. So that's why we are doing the better together type approach.
Yep.
Sorry,
you want
Rich,
to cover this? You want me to cover this?
Oh yeah, okay. So
you got it.
Yeah. So shameless plug here. Everything we've talked about that needs to be done, we actually have a free version that you give us a basically an export from your CMMS. We will show you what we know about the devices that you have in there. We'll show you the the risks, the cyber risks, the recalls that we know about, everything up to the point where we actually show how traffic flows between devices, because, well, you can't do that with just export. If you're already a Forescout customer, we can work with that and use your existing information, pull that and give you a preview of the CyberMDX side. So, but
Yeah, let me
the
just
main
add.
yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let me just add to this. It's a couple things I said in the previous slide, right? We want to make sure that it's not a barrier to taking the steps to, again, improving your security posture. And again, Hunter talked a lot about device visibility is at the core of that, knowing what you have, what might be
And where it
not in
is.
compliance, right? What may have like a high risk against it. You want to know all of that. Now, this freemium edition that we have here, it is role based too, right? So if you're biomedical engineer, you want the biomedical freemium edition. If you're security, there's a security version, etc. As Hunter said, you can sign up for free. We need a CMMS file, or if you're a Forescout customer, we can just take the feed from that. But this will allow you to see all these assets and at least get an idea of what it is, the level of data you can report on or you can act on, right? Ultimately, what you want to do is at least know that so that any steps you have to take to secure those devices, you can do it.
All right. So Jamie, we're open for any questions if anyone has anything that they're interested in from the technical or from the other side. So
Fantastic. Well, we do have a couple of questions that came in, but attendees, I want to take a quick moment just to remind you that we have time for some additional questions in this Q&A. You can use the question feature on your webinar dashboard, or you're welcome to chat the questions over to me as well. We'll get through as many as time will allow. But Hunter, the first question I have for you is, an attendee said, I work for a mid-sized hospital, and I think we do feel constrained by resources. Are there any shortcuts you can recommend so we can do more with less?
okay, so absolutely. One of the main things, once again, back to the Better Together story, is one, get connected with your IT department. Second, if you have like our sort of device and our sort of solution, it will actually recommend how you should approach the problem. So it's like, we know that you can't upgrade the device. We know that, but we have recommendations. So as a biomed person, you don't have to go out and learn IT. We say it's like, here's recommended protections on the network, hand it over to your IT department, and then move on. Now, additionally, you can sort all of your difficulties by location. So you plan your day. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to be at clinic so and so. What's my big hits there? So, here's your recalls, here's your cybersecurity risks, here's your devices that need attention. So that type of stuff really helps accelerate and make your little small team much more mighty.
Good deal. Next question. What are some of the challenges facing HDOs with respect to their cybersecurity posture?
One of the biggest ones, like we just covered previously, is just the straight up resources. You don't have the time, you don't have the people, you don't have the money to solve every problem. So you've got to manage your risk, and that's where a single point of truth really helps. Is like, okay, this is everything we know. Now I'm going to plan. I know I keep sounding like I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to plan my day and say, okay, I've got, for instance, I've got 2 IT guys and I've got 2 clinical guys. So you team up each of those, and it's like, okay, these guys are going to go work on provider location A. These guys are going to work at main hospital B, and now here's what you need to do. So that's what really accelerates that and makes it a little bit easier. So you're not being woken up at 3 a.m. with a call from your CEO.
Fair enough. Yes, not the time that I want a phone call from the CEO. Well, let me ask you this one. This is another one that came in from an attendee. How does this help me answer questions from my cybersecurity insurance checklist?
That's one we're getting a lot right now. Most of the cybersecurity items that we've seen, they have basically a punch list of, do you do this? Do you have do you have a NAC? Do you have this? Do you have certain firewalls? Do you have protections? Are you using SSL? Like all of this type of stuff. And it's really just a punch list. They don't care, but if you can check all the boxes, that's all they care about. What you can do is with a solid solution. One, if you're doing the old school spreadsheet and you got the guy that you know knows all your network, yeah, you can check those off kind of slowly. But if you can go in and just generate a report, say, okay, here's all of our security, here's all of our recall mitigations, here's all of our threat actions, and then you can just say, hey, here you go, get off my back, because we know insurance people are annoying. It's like, here's all the reports you need. I'm going to go back and actually do the job that I need to do because I don't have enough people at the moment.
I love this next question, Hunter. I have an attendee that asked if you could back the slide presentation up to the QR code. They wanted to make sure that they could use it. Maybe tell us a little, if you or Rich could tell us where that QR code would go so the rest of the attendees would understand.
Yeah, Rich, you can follow on this, but that QR code goes to our website, so you can sign up for the freemium edition, and you can directly upload a CMMS if you want to. Otherwise, it'll at least get you contact with us, because we know that's very uploading that file could be, against your security policy. But we just want to make sure that you have the option, and if nothing else, you get contact with us, and you can deliver that file through a secure channel like an SSL, or everyone has, I think most people now have like the secure emails, so we can work with that, but that will get you started with our freemium edition.
Right. I'll just add to that. Right. It's not completely self-service. As Hunter said, the QR code will take you to a landing page. That landing page is www.cybermdx.com/freemium, I believe. And what you do there is just complete a form, and then someone will contact you to work with you to get that CMMS or Forescout file or what have you, minimally, just to talk through, if you're interested in it and how to proceed with it, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not giving up any information going to that QR code. The QR code itself won't violate anything. It's simply just going to take you to a landing page, and you can say, hey, I'm interested in this, and we'll follow up with you and then take it from there.
And I also want to add in that we're very HIPAA aware. None of the information that goes to us is used in any way other than just to provide you information. And with our full solution, nothing that goes to our portal uses has any identifying information at all.
Yeah, go even further. We're not just HIPAA aware, at least the CyberMDX side, we're HIPAA certified, right? We have to go through HIPAA training and everything. So it's very
when I say HIPAA aware, I'm talking about it from their side of things. Like, yes, we know
Yep.
what you're worried about, and we make sure that we don't touch any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, I've got one last question. Though attendees, we've got some extra time if you want to go ahead and use that question feature for additional questions. If not, we will end it after this one. Hunter or Rich, do you have insight into the C-suite or IT leadership beliefs about who is responsible for remediating cyber risk on medical devices? Is it IT? Is it Biomed? Is it a combination of both, or maybe others?
Okay, so I'll let Rich expand on this because he's great at this. But in general, it is all of the above. However, currently everything is now converging into a single vertical. So it's going to be either CTO or CISO, and the Biomed and the IT are going to report up through the same structure. But beyond that, Rich, anything from you?
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much what you said. As of now, we still see it sort of disparate. To echo what Hunter said, it will need or require sort of like a top-down approach, right? So we're starting to see now hospitals from an executive board level or leadership team level, make this a priority, right? And I talked about how with the Ipsos report, right, almost universally, all the hospitals recognize that it's a problem. When I talked about the budget piece, about investing, say, in tools, that doesn't mean they're not investing in other areas, whether that's structure, as Hunter said, getting teams to roll up under a CISO, or the CISO themselves, is given, authority to roll out certain initiatives like training, or other types of things like maybe email tools, et cetera. So it's kind of a loaded question, or one that's sort of an evolution, right? We're moving away from the silos of the past. I kind of meant to say this earlier, and if I can, go off for a little bit, I'll just say, we're kind of living in this perfect storm right now where hospitals are, almost by far the most attacked vertical or organizations for cyber attacks, right? And there's a reason for that. It's one, because traditionally cybersecurity wasn't very strong. Again, that's not an indictment. That's more just that, it's hard, right? It needs a major effort. Maybe it just wasn't there yet. Then on top of that, hackers know that this 24/7 by 365 environment is incredibly vulnerable. So they know if they attack a hospital, and they attack it with a ransomware attack and threaten to shut everything down, they're getting paid. Okay, so that obviously is very concerning for the reasons we discussed, and hospitals, have clearly taken notice of it. Again, this is an evolution. They're moving towards this, maybe not fast enough, but ultimately, as I said earlier, it isn't the domain, or it isn't the responsibility of one person, one organization. And by the way, let's just be honest. Again, I don't know, where everyone here works, whether they work in a larger hospital or a smaller hospital. In many smaller hospitals, which say 500 beds or less, they may just have an IT person. That person, is responsible for all of this. Do not think, or don't mistake, that smaller hospitals don't get attacked. They do. Okay, you can go look at things like the HIPAA wall of shame, and you'll see there's plenty there, right? So it's no longer the domain of one group, one organization. It has to be everyone, and that has to be driven from the top down. If it's not made to be an initiative, we'll continue to struggle, right? But ultimately, as Hunter mentioned, we're slowly seeing like CISOs or security organizations have more control. They would certainly be the primary area to look to if your hospital has one. as a place to start. Encourage everybody, just as a a matter of interest, to learn as much as you can about security, even something as simple as how to identify something like a phishing email. That's still the top vector for cyber attacks. And even people like me, I've been in security for years, and I get emails that look so authentic. I have to question whether they're real or not. I have to go to our CISO and say, is this real? And I've never clicked on them, but they're close, right? They're like, wow, this is hard for me to determine if this is a real email or a phishing email. So things like that, you can take steps to improve. There's you're not going to get anyone angry if you're trying to make yourself better. But ultimately, like I said, tap your security organization, but the responsibility lies with everybody within the hospital.
Yeah, and
Yes,
Rich,
I got another question. Oh, go ahead, Hunter.
Okay, so
I've got another question that came in. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
All right, let me do that, and then we'll get the question. So just to expand on what Rich was saying about the attack vectors, even the small hospitals get them. We've actually found out from talking to CISOs and CTOs, if you have cyber insurance, you're more likely to be attacked because the people know they're going to get paid.
Yep,
Now,
that's right.
So you got to, regardless if you use our stuff or something else, you have to start thinking about this as a combined effort.
Yeah.
So, all right, go ahead.
Good deal. Sorry. How important is this to ambulatory surgery centers?
You'd be surprised, actually. So the ambulatory clinics where you have these the suites set up that have like the C-arm or things like that, those become attack vectors. So you could be in the middle of a surgery trying to do a X-ray with the C-arm, or I don't know if it's an X-ray. Sorry, I'm not a doctor, but I know that you do an imaging with the C-arm. And all of a sudden, that could be a vector into the entire surgical suite. So it is absolutely imperative that you cover all your bases as much as you can.
Yeah, I think I'd add to that too. Just like from a marketing perspective, the marketing guy, right? I tell this to people not in cybersecurity, and I think we live in a society, we live in a world where you might be led to believe, and if you're as old as me and you watched like Bugs Bunny as a kid, that the bad guys are stupid. They're not. They're highly sophisticated, highly creative. They're always a step ahead of you. Okay, and that applies not only in a real world, it applies in this world, in cybersecurity. So what I'm getting to is you should never have a false sense of security. You think, well, we're small, or we're just an ambulatory surgical center. If you have medical devices, you're a target. Those, you may not specifically be the target, the primary target, but if you're connected on a network or you're part of a broader network, and even one device gets infiltrated, it could impact you. Okay, so it is critical from a general healthcare perspective that security is made a priority. Period. End of sentence. And I'd leave it at that. Like I said, we've seen some really small hospitals that would be like the equivalent of like a clinic get hit with cyber attacks. We've seen hospitals at like ski resorts that may have literally 10 beds, 15 beds. They get hit. So it's the Wild West out there, and it is a surface that hackers know they can exploit, and they are doing it very aggressively. If that helps.
It does. Well said. I appreciate the time and certainly the wisdom that both of you have shared today. Again, on behalf of the Webinar Wednesday team, I want to encourage everyone to visit today's sponsor and learn more about the products and services that they bring to the industry. You can visit CyberMDX, a Forescout company, by going to cybermdx.com. A quick reminder, as always, that you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. The survey is going to come in 1 hour. It will come via email to the email address that you used to register today. Your participation is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. You'll be able to download that certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions or issues, don't hesitate to contact us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. We will be back next week with another webinar. Please visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and complimentary registration. Y'all enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll see you back next week.